Hey, Grampian Nation, welcome back. We have a fellow who I'm just kind of a fanboy of. I found the Spartan Leadership podcast, and that's how I found him. I asked him to come on. Stand by. You're going to meet Josh Kosnick.
In 2013, I coined the name Grampian, and I gave it to your host, Jim Tracy.
Josh, welcome to Grampian, man. How are you?
I'm excited to be here. It's been a snowy day here in Madison. I get warm and cozy in the podcast studio to have this great conversation with you.
Oh, right on, right on. So I got to dive right into this. I am a fan of your podcast, which probably makes me really stupid to bring you on mine because I'm going to chase all my listeners over to you. But that's a good thing because they pick up a lot of stuff. As a man of faith, I know you're a man of faith. You say you're a bridge builder. Where did that come from?
It came from a long road of mentoring and developing people, but really where it came from was my pits of despair. I wanted to, after I got out of my pits of despair, and we can go into that story in a little bit, but I wanted to help people connect the dots on some things. I felt like I failed miserably in some very key important areas of my life. And when I was in my pits of despair, I asked myself these three questions that unfortunately I didn't have the right answer to. I said, did I chase and pursue God as much as I was my goals and ambitions? Did I pursue my wife and her love the way I did my positional power? And yeah, for positional power, identity in the workplace, stuff of that nature. And did I spend as much time and attention with my kids as I did my calendar? And the unfortunate answer to those questions was no to all three. And so I built this framework around 5 bridges that set life's priorities in the proper order.
Mm-hmm.
And I started building the bridges towards those, not only for myself, but for all those that I led. And really, that's what led me to write my book and really help people uncover some of the spots they're missing in their lives. And also, hopefully, they can learn some lessons the easy way, meaning they didn't have to go through it personally like I did, and they could learn it from me and get ahead of the game.
You know, at the Grampian, we call that training by trauma. And the lessons are very effective, but the tests always come before the lessons. And so we remember those. But I think that most entrepreneurs would probably, this story would resonate with them about those three pits of despair. Is that what you find?
I think it would, and I'll share. I'm vulnerable with this story because I shared it in my book as much as I legally could, and it's one of those things where I was an entrepreneur slash entrepreneur. I always described to the outside world that didn't know my financial world as like being a hybrid between a RVP, regional RVP, and a franchise owner. I knew I could get terminated if I wasn't doing the job, but they'd have to buy me out. So it was like this hybrid position, if you will. I was underneath the umbrella of a Fortune 100 company and running a financial firm with 250 employees, and we managed $4 billion of assets. And I thought I was in my purpose, Jim. Like I thought that's what I was going to do the rest of my life. And well, at least from 35 to 55. My plan was run the firm from 35 to 55, grow it as big as possible, have as much impact as possible. And 5 years into it, at age 41, God had different plans. The rug was pulled out from underneath me. Someone that I recruited, I mentored, taught him how to be successful in the business, decided to start to act out in my firm and become a cancer in my firm. And when he wasn't getting his way in 2021, if you recall, not only were we getting through COVID, but also we had the BLM, HIDA BLM, HIDA DEI. And I'm not saying that any of those things were bad. This person was choosing to use that momentum as a way to get himself up and take me down. And in the course of this, he ended up suing me for discrimination, not because I actually discriminated against him, but because he saw it as a path forward. So the company had already done their research on me, knew I didn't do anything wrong, but as soon as he sued me, they terminated me to get themselves out of the lawsuit. And so my whole world comes crashing down. Everything I knew, everything I thought about the future is thrown out the window. And what we have as problems as, I don't want to even just say men, as people that work. So men,
Hmm.
women that work, we wrap our identities in our titles, or what we're making for money, what we're accomplishing for accolades and goals and all that. And our identity's tied to that. And as soon as that comes crashing down, whether it's illness, termination, the company goes under, you name it, that identity goes away and you're left with, okay, what now?
Yeah.
And what we got to realize is that our identity is not just in what we do. That's just a piece of the puzzle. And that
Yeah.
was a piece of the puzzle that I was figuring out as I moved through that, what I would say the 5 stages of grief. It was very analogous to losing a loved one.
Hmm. What I found is that when I retired as the CEO of Legacy Telecommunications, lots of people know the story. I was like, oh, this is going to be awesome. I'm just going to sit down and rest by the pool and everything's going to be gorgeous and happy. And I found out there was nothing appealing about it. And I would turn around and I would say, hey, buddy, I want you to do there's no one there. So I kind of referred to myself as the recovering CEO. And that led me to podcasting and some other things and do a lot of speaking and wrote a book and all that cool stuff. But um, you did that at a much younger age than I was.
Yeah, it was
Bigger
forced upon
impact.
me though, Jim.
Yeah.
I had no intentions of writing a book. I had no intentions
Yeah.
of going out on this new path. And I coach a lot of entrepreneurs now. I'm privileged to do that. And I'll tell you this, it doesn't matter if it was a happy sale or a sad sale. If you don't have a purpose lined up
Hmm.
after that, after the sale of the business, my dad went through 2 years of depression. I've seen people take their own lives because of it.
Mm.
I've seen people choose to fulfill that void with alcohol or gambling or something else that's just unhealthy and unproductive. And
Yeah.
what we've got to realize is that we were born with purpose. And especially as men, we have to have some purpose in our lives that carries us forward. I was in the retirement planning world for many, many years. And we watch this, people that retire that didn't even sell their business, but they retire. There's only so much golf you can play. There's only
Yeah.
so many vacations you can take. This is where people find that second chapter, or that next chapter of theirs, where they can actually be of service to the world. That's something that
Hmm.
we all strive to be. And I would just encourage anyone listening that if you're on that back end of your career, think about what's next. You'll be around on this earth much longer if you have some sort of purpose in your life. In part of my financial planning, this just came to mind. We've seen instances where people that, and maybe you have in your life as well, Jim, where the spouse dies and very quickly thereafter, the other one gives up and they're gone as well, whether it's
Yeah.
minutes, days, months,
Dominoes.
very quickly thereafter, because they lost their will to live. Because the
Uh-huh.
only reason they were still living is their spouse was still alive. They didn't have anything else, so they gave up.
Yeah. And that's tragic because there is more. And as I look even at my life, I've got 5 kids and 20 grandkids. And how tragic would it be for either my wife or I to pass away and the other one just to like hang up because it didn't matter. It does matter. And we do get to impact the next generation. It's our responsibility.
That's right. Absolutely agree.
Yeah. So you started Kairos. Pronounced it right? Kairos, Kairos. Okay. It started as a book or a consulting service. Which was it? Chicken or egg first?
It was the coaching service first.
Okay. What need did you see out in the marketplace that said, "Hey, I think I'm going to go help people by coaching them"?
I saw a lot of coaches that had never actually built a business and ran a business as coaches. And they're speaking from theory and not experience. And they're leading people astray. And we even see this, I'm sure a lot of your listeners have, with quote unquote influencers on the internet glorifying entrepreneurship. I
Yeah.
got asked on a podcast the other day that he asked very pointed. He said, would you encourage entrepreneurship for everyone like it's being kind of advertised? I said, absolutely not. 100% no. It is the hardest thing you will ever do, is to be an entrepreneur. It'll test every piece of your fiber of your being that you have. So it is not for everyone. And I love that you know the entrepreneur term and that you've used it a couple times, because not this podcast I was on was hosted out of Denmark. He had never heard the term.
Mm,
And I explained it to him. I have two phenomenal entrepreneurs on my team. They have all the capabilities to be an entrepreneur, but they lack the risk tolerance to be an entrepreneur.
sure, sure.
And so they operate with me. They found a leader with me where I let them do all the responsibilities and act like they're an entrepreneur in their roles, and they do their job so well. We don't have set vacation time or set sick time. We just get the job done.
Get her
And
done.
they, like my director of marketing, my podcast producer, he was just on paternity leave for a few weeks, paid. I don't, no questions. Like, just do what you got to do, take care of your family. Right. So it's finding leaders in the entrepreneur world. If you lack that risk tolerance, or perhaps you're not, don't have the CEO competencies yet, being under a leader that has a grandiose vision that you can fit your vision inside of is a
Hmm.
great spot, and let you operate in your zone of genius. That's a great spot. I would
Yeah,
hang on to that leader and that organization as long as you possibly can.
sure,
The entrepreneur
sure.
world is not for everyone. And so I really wanted to strike out and find a balance to help entrepreneurs not only live a great or have a great business, but live a great life outside of their business. I had
Right
seen
on.
too many entrepreneurs fall into depression, or go through three marriages, or estranged relationships with their kids, or lose their health, and they're on their second heart attack and wondering if they can get back into business. Like, I want to help them live a great life outside of their business as well as inside of it.
People ask me also sometimes if I would recommend being an entrepreneur, not entrepreneur, entrepreneur. And my question to them is, how much do you have in the tank if you don't do it? Because I couldn't not do it. It was everything that was in me led me to do what I was called to do or made to do. I don't know. I guess I was a terrible employee because I had to do it for myself and I had to figure it out for myself. Did you find that too?
Yeah, I told this story briefly in my book. I was a college dropout. I went to college to play football, not to go to college. Wrong
What
intentions, I
school?
know. What's that?
What school?
University of Wisconsin Whitewater. It's a
Okay.
D3 powerhouse. And so it's, so I drop out of school. I become a sales manager at Best Buy. I'm running a top 5 store in the country. And so I think I'm going to go ask for a raise. And so I do. And they tell me no. And they tell me, oh, here's the path. You're doing really well. But I've always been taught, if you do better, you get more. You deserve more if
Yeah.
you continue to perform better. And so that really just didn't sit well with me. So very quickly thereafter, I decided I'm going to strike out on my own, became a financial advisor, started building a team, and started becoming that entrepreneur. But
Hmm.
for me, it was, I couldn't have an artificial ceiling over my head,
Hmm.
being told what I was worth,
Yeah.
and I wanted to work for what I was worth. And then I knew I was gonna screw up, and I screwed up plenty, and still screw up today. But I was willing to go through it and figure it out along the way. But for me, it was really, I had to, what I put into it, I wanted to get out of it.
Yeah.
And that was really the impetus for me joining the entrepreneur ranks.
I didn't really envy the people that I worked for, as in I'm building your business. It was just like I needed to do it for me and for my family. And so when the opportunity came, and it came a couple of times because my entrepreneurial journey included multiple failures as well. and, and I think those were building blocks that actually built me into what I ended up becoming, which was a relatively successful CEO.
I ask a couple of different questions, like you asked that one. One is, are you willing to sacrifice paying your own bills for the sake of your employees? To keep the lights on, to pay employee, like, because if you can stomach that, you may have the what it takes to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
If you can't, and there's no way, Jose, that you could do that, then probably shouldn't be an entrepreneur, because there's a money tolerance, risk tolerance that goes along with it. And I always tell people, it's like, if you have never had to sacrifice paying your own bills for the sake of others, and making sure they can pay their bills, you don't truly understand what it is to grow a business.
Yeah. My wife and I started another business called SENL. It stands for Seldom Early Never Late. And we used to run to the mailbox back when money came in the mail. And we used to run to the mailbox around one side, me on the other. And man, we would open that up. And every time without fail, because we were savers instead of spenders, we'd open it up and there would be like a ridiculous early paid check that we made payroll with. So we never had to go deeper than our savings or never had to jump into oodles of debt. What have you found about the new debt tolerance, the new tolerance for debt in our society?
Ah, well, there's smart debt and there's dumb debt, right?
Yeah.
So in the coming from the financial world, Dave Ramsey's made a huge name for himself and he's grown a great business. So I don't want to take anything away from him on that. I think to listen to Dave around debt is smart. To listen to Dave about talk about investments or insurance, I think is not smart.
Yeah.
He's giving. So here's the thing I always gave people is Dave Ramsey, Susie Orman, or Suze Orman, however you pronounce her name. They've created big brands around money, but they've never passed a test to do what I used to do.
Hmm.
And the reason that they haven't is because then they could be held liable for the advice that they give. When I held my licenses, I couldn't speak like they speak on their radio shows or TV shows because someone may hold me liable if they took my advice and something goes wrong,
Yeah.
they would hold me liable. So they have not passed those tests. And I'm not saying that the tests are the only marker of being a good financial advisor or anything, but it is a starting point. The SEC and FINRA have put those in place for a reason.
Hmm.
And the debt, I think you got to weigh is what is good debt? Is debt going to help me grow this business, scale this business, um, invest in another employee that's actually going to help me go through an iteration of my business that's going to help lead to the next chapter. Like that,
Sure.
that is good. That's good debt. When we're just going into debt to upgrade our lifestyle to keep up with the Joneses, that's dumb debt, right?
Yeah.
One of the markers of being a great entrepreneur is living beneath your means, which it sounds like you and your wife did for many, many years, living
Yeah.
beneath your means so that if that unexpected turn in business happens, you have the ability to make payroll, pay your bills, stuff of that nature. Because business is ebbs and flows with cycles. There's things when I go through SWOT analyses with my leadership teams, one of the threats that you can't control is macroeconomic stuff, worldly events, um, tariffs, whatever, name it, and political
Growth.
environment, like you name it, those are threats. But some of those we can plan for and control, and some of them we can't. So you got to be cognizant. Just keeping up with the Joneses debt is really dumb,
Yeah.
but taking on debt to actually and having a plan in place with the debt you're taking with that injection of capital to grow and scale your business, that can be smart.
For sure. I said growth with a bit of a smirk on my face because what we found is that when we financed it ourselves, so we had to constrain our growth because it takes cash to grow. Whether you're buying parts or inventory or somebody's labor, you're putting stuff out before it comes back in. And so when you have to cash flow that, you have to be a saver instead of a spender, or you're going to be a borrower instead of a lender. And it's a fantastic way to grind a business, but the grind lasts for 20 years, you know? Yeah.
Or longer.
Yeah. And you're betting your house on it every other payroll cycle too, you know?
Yeah. But these are the things that you have to have the risk tolerance for on the money side if you're going to go in the entrepreneur world. If you recognize that you're not, that is okay. Be a great entrepreneur for someone, a leader that you can buy into.
Okay. So tell me what, again, are the five bridges of the Kairos framework that you established?
All right. So when I was in my pit of despair, I'll give this little backdrop. They wouldn't allow me into the offices that I own the lease on, which was just really ironic. Is what it is. So they send movers over with all my stuff. All the boxes show up to my house. But I was so, in my stages of grief at that point, I couldn't even open them. So they went down the basement and they sat for approximately a month. But as I got the courage to go down there and open them up, I had this major epiphany. And that's when I asked myself those three questions we talked about earlier. But it was just stuff. It's not stuff I can take with
Yeah.
me. If I were to die that day, the accolades, the degrees, the awards, the designations that all made me seem important and also, gave credibility when you stepped inside my office. It was just stuff that was going to collect dust for my wife and kids if I wasn't there. So none of it mattered, and I was chasing all the wrong things. And I had long done annual planning, as most people should, whether they're a business owner or not, to think about
Hmm.
how the next year is going to go. And I always did Darren Hardy's Wheel of Life. And if any of you have read the book, The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, he includes that Wheel of Life in there. And basically, it's 8 different categories: financial, relationships, spiritual, physical health, et cetera, et cetera. And
Hmm.
you fill out a questionnaire, you place your dot on the graph, and you just see if your dots are even, if it makes a wheel, or if your wheel's lopsided.
Yeah.
Well, I found a problem with that when I was in my pit of despair, because not all those things should be ranked equally. And so I started to think about it as I asked those 3 questions. I was like, this is where I screwed things up. So for me, if my relationship with God isn't right, nothing else is right.
Yeah.
And so I realize people may not agree or believe what I believe, but you've all probably been to a funeral or a visitation and seen that the body is present and the spirit is gone. So which was once a vibrant being, the body is now there and that spirit has gone elsewhere. So
Yeah.
that we're spiritual beings. You at least have to know that at your core. So whatever your belief is, you got to get that right and make sure that you know what purpose you're living into. And so for me, that's God. And if I'm not right with him, nothing else is right. So spiritual bridge has to be number one.
Hmm.
Number two is what I call internal, but it's your mental, your emotional, and your physical health. And so it's the age old adage, or the quote that I use in this is, every time we get on an airplane, the nice flight attendants say, in case of emergency, the oxygen mask will drop. Please put yours on first before assisting others. It's very analogous in life. If I'm not right with me, I can't be the best for others. That's my wife, my family, and those that I employ. So I have to make sure that I'm mentally, emotionally, and physically in very strong health so that I can be the best for others. So internal bridge has to be number two. And
Hmm.
then number three is relationships. Relationships are what I call the fruit of life. This is where I, like felt really bad about the quality of time I was spending with my wife and kids and my key relationships in my life, because I was pouring everything into that business. And going through COVID was a big eye opener, because we had switched to this whole virtual world instead of being in person. And this was not sitting well for a lot of my advisors and staff, because we were face to face people, across the desk, kitchen table people. So from 7 to 5, I was on normal calls, recruiting calls, development calls, all these things. And from 5 to 9, I'm playing part time psychologist, and I don't have a degree in that.
Yeah.
So that, my kids and wife were getting the absolute leftovers during that time frame. And so that's where I started to have some, negative feelings about how I had treated things, and realized that I screwed things up. So relationships, my order is God first, yourself second, your spouse if you have one, your kids if you have them, and then everyone else. And our job is to not screw up the order.
Hmm.
So if we get those first 3 bridges, then we get to the bridge that everyone likes to skip to, which is what I call environment, but it's really your professional, your financial, and your creative joy being. But this is the bridge everyone skips to, is we focused on what we do and how much we make, instead of those first 3 things that really matter more than anything else. Because when I lost everything, or what I perceived to be everything, I still had my relationship with God. I still was physically healthy. Mentally, we could argue, but physically healthy. And my wife and kids were still there. And thank God they were, because I probably wouldn't be sitting before you today if they weren't.
Yeah.
And so I didn't lose everything. I lost a certain piece of me, and now I get the choice to rebuild back, or to crawl in a pit and stay there.
Hmm.
So I don't think that it's all our fault when we think about the environment and why we skip to professional and financial. Society has some uh, culpability in this. We get asked when we're kids, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah.
And then in high school, it gets reinforced. Hey, what are you going to go to college for?
Yeah.
And
What's
then
your
in
plan?
college, they go, what are you going to do with that degree? And it's all circled around the what instead of the who. So I think the more appropriate question to ask our kids and ourselves is, who do we want to be when we grow up?
Yeah.
And so if we can get that right, there's a lot that can fall underneath that as a filter to what we want to do with our gifts and skills that God gave us. And
Yeah.
so if we get those first four bridges right, though, we get to start leaving our legacy every day. And
Yeah.
legacy is bridge five. The two things, Jim, everyone gets wrong about legacy. One is they think it's 30 years from now or however long from now. It's not today. So they think it's some time off that they're going to leave this legacy. And the second thing is they think it's about the things they leave behind. Well, as I illustrated earlier with those boxes, like there's no U-Haul following hearse, right? We can't take anything with us. So that being said, it's not about the things, but rather what you leave in others that's going
Hmm.
to be your legacy. And you
Yeah.
have the chance every single day you wake up, every time you're blessed to have another day, you have a chance to leave a part of your legacy that day. You just got to be intentional about your time.
Right on. You get to build it. You get to build it. And even in the fourth bridge, it would seem to me that part of the danger with the fourth bridge is that we get constant feedback on that fourth bridge. I mean, your kid doesn't run up to you every day and say, "Wow, you're the greatest dad ever," but you might get a few attaboys a week at work, and all of a sudden, the feedback that you're getting is less sincere, but more transparent, and it's readily available. All you got to do is hustle. And I think you really onto something with that fourth bridge, and then the fifth bridge. I named my company Legacy, so I'd like to think I know a little bit about that anyway, especially at 67 years old.
Yeah, you definitely know more than me, and that's the thing is like, unfortunately, we don't start thinking about it until most people are your age.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, no
that's what I
kidding.
wanted to for the people that are 25 years old listening to this. You are building your legacy right now. And it's in every interaction you're blessed to have every day. Every action you take or every action you don't take is going to
Yeah,
be a part of your legacy. You just got to be cognizant and intentional that every day you're building upon it. It's not some far off distant thing.
yeah. You know, this last year, I had a bad skiing accident. They said, "Hey, man, you're never going to run again." And I'm like, "Thank you. I was never a runner. I love that." But it bugged me enough where I said, "You know what? I am going to." And so every year I do a Spartan type race or an obstacle race with my did it with 7 grandkids this year, and it's only a 5K, but I did it on half a knee, so I guess we'll call that a victory. But those type of legacy building adventures, when you do them with your kids and then your grandkids, they transform how the children or how the next generation and the one after that sees you.
Yeah. It's experiences that people remember, right? So this past weekend, we were down in Indiana visiting my mother-in-law and other in-laws family. And I took my 8-year-old son out to a familiar spot behind my in-laws' old house where we do some shooting while the girls go shopping. And he's been curious. He went hunting with me on opening weekend a couple weekends back, and he's just been curious. And I love teaching people the safety and responsibility of handling guns. I have a gun range here on my property. I don't care
Nice.
if you're young or old. I love to teach the responsibility, the leadership, the lessons that go along with handling a tool that is very dangerous. And so I started teaching him this year, and we went there, and I got utterly emotional because almost 8 years ago, my father-in-law took his own life.
Mm,
And holidays have never been the same ever since, just like it
yeah.
is for anyone else that's lost dear loved ones. Holidays are joyous and times of people, the people that are still with us, but they're also very sad for the people that are no longer with us.
Mm,
And so I'm out there and I'm teaching him. It was his first time I put a small handgun in his hand, a 22. We had done some rifle shooting already, but I just soaking it all in. I was like, I got emotional because this is what Tom and I would do, and my
mm,
brother-in-law Elliot, and some other friends of his, and we'd have so much joy out there. The girls are off doing their own thing, and we're all just having a hoot, shooting, and just being guys.
Yeah.
And it was just a really emotional moment that, now I'm teaching my son this. He only got to meet his grandfather 2 times. And yeah, just passing those lessons down and having some shared experiences, because that's what we'll remember the
Yeah.
most. It's not the things. I have some boots that I wear that were Tom's that every time I put them on, I remember his. But someday those boots are going to wear out and I'll have to throw them away.
Yeah.
But those experiences that I shared with him will never go away.
Well, I'm sorry for your loss, but I'm also grateful that you continued on to teach your son responsible firearm use and ownership, et cetera, because that is our Second Amendment.
Yeah, yeah, it's an important thing. And I also, like, it's teaching people to have a healthy fear instead of an irrational fear.
Hmm.
And respecting and understanding the principles behind it. And like on our car ride home after we got a deer, and he was really fascinated about the the gutting process and the stripping and getting that. But we were talking about gun safety. I was like, "Hey, what did I do with my gun?" He goes, "You unloaded it, you put the safety on." And I was like, "Yep." And we left it behind. And we go to get the deer, and then we'll pick it up and put it in its proper spot. And just these little things that you continue to pass on and teach
Yeah.
them to make sure that they're safe as well.
That's awesome. That is really awesome. So, as I look forward and I look at my book list, Kairos is on there. Tell us about the book.
So the Kairos Code is the book. It is, you'll hear a very vulnerable story. I shared with you a brief snippet of it today, but I share with you the first of all, the word Kairos. Most people don't know the definition. And you were asking how to pronounce it earlier, so you got it right. And it's got two definitions, and one comes from the ancient Greek, and they're talking about a moment or era where the moment is now. Like, and the best way that I can explain how the Greeks put it in today's terminology is like the zone or flow, a flow
Mm,
state.
yeah.
Well, any former athlete or anyone that's ever been in the zone in a project or a sport or whatever it may be, you know what I'm talking about. Because Kairos time, you're in a different playing field versus Chronos time. Chronos
Hmm.
time is the clock ticking by that we all know and live by. Kairos time is what God lives on. It's completely, you're not even aware that time is in existence. If you've ever been in the zone, like I can remember a couple instances in sports where I was just on fire, in flow, in the zone, no concept of time, right? And that's Kairos time. Is like we can't live like God lives. However, we can catch glimpses of this Kairos time when we're so present that nothing else matters except for what we're doing right now. And then it has an ancient biblical definition where it's a divine moment when God acts.
Mm,
And so that's the snippet of Kairos. But what I get into in the book are the five bridges at a much deeper level, and how to really become the leader that has a lasting legacy of eternal
hmm.
impact.
All right. So, tell us a little bit more about the Spartan Leadership Podcast, where the name came from. Obviously, there's a little bit of Greek in there, but where did the name come from, and what do you talk about on the Spartan Leadership Podcast?
You picked it up. That's pretty much it. Is I was so I named my company Kairos Coaching. And so I have this fascination with history, and especially ancient Greece and ancient Rome. And for some reason, Spartan leadership just came to mind, because leadership's my it's kind of my bag. Like that's what I've
Hmm.
done for 20 plus years, and I love talking leadership. I love continuing to read and learn on leadership, and love teaching it.
Yeah.
And so Spartan leadership comes to mind. I'm like, oh, that has to be taken. Like I'm figuring Michigan State University or
Yeah.
someone else that has a fashion that like has to be taken. I go to look it up,
Hmm.
it's not taken. I was like, that is incredible. Let's snatch that up quick.
Done deal.
Uh, Done deal. And then just continued on. So I had a podcast when I owned the firm with a different name called Inspire People, Impact Lives, which was my mission.
Hmm.
And so now you'll see my sign offs on any social media posts I put Inspire and Impact Josh. And that's where that stemmed from. But as I was rebranding myself, rebranding my business, going through it, that Spartan leadership came up. And now we interview entrepreneurs mostly. But what I like to do with the entrepreneurs that I interview is they're not like the biggest names on the planet. you can listen to the biggest names on Ed Milet or Lewis Howes or Tom Bilyeu's Impact Theory, and I listen to a lot of those. Um, but for most of us, those people are out of our reach. Like
Hmm.
they've already done it. So I love interviewing people that are still on the climb that we feel like we can get to and feel like we can grab those lessons and go, okay, that's one lesson I could apply right now here today.
Yeah.
So I love entrepreneurs. And then once a month, I was joking with you ahead of time that my YouTube's started to blow up with my once a month leadership and reviews, where I have two friends of mine sitting here, and we essentially rag on politics and leadership as a whole, how they're not going so well in our country and abroad. Um, we smoke a cigar and give our very biased opinions on why they're screwing things up. And for whatever reason, people love that. Either they love it or they hate it, but they're giving it attention. So
There you go. There you go. So, as you move forward through your coaching business and through your consulting business, what is a common theme? What is a common problem that you find? And I don't mean in the 10 to $50 million business. Everybody struggles to get from 3 to 10, and that's a scaling problem. But there's some common themes that I find. Do you find them as well? What are they?
yeah, the owner operator. So here's one of the biggest ones is transitioning from being the owner that's doing the work in the field to actually being the owner in the C-suite. And it's a people problem, but it's also an ego problem,
Mm,
right? So we got first got to have the revenue to get someone to replace us, right, in the field, whether it's a hands-on job or a sales job or whatever it may be. Owners in that 1 to 10 million, 3 to 10 million, that's their main struggle is getting themselves out of the field and into the office.
yeah.
And the ego tells you that, well, if I'm not the one out there doing it, proving it that I can with my guys, then they're not going to respect me as much, or no one can do it as good as I can do it, so I'm going to
Yeah.
continue doing it. Whether again that's swinging a hammer or you being the salesperson, doesn't matter. That's the number one issue that I see with most people in that spot.
Hmm.
So part of the work that I'm doing with them is mental or ego check. And then the other part of it is making sure that we have the systems and processes so that the people that they're training and developing can actually do the job as well. Now, I start with as well, but really what we found out and what I found out through personal experience, anytime I could get someone to 60 to 70% as good as I was, within a month or two, they started doing it better than I did.
Yeah.
There's very few things like for me being a hardwired CEO, like being the visionary, like that is 100% of my skill set. I don't know that there's many people that can do it better than me. But from sales aspect to hands-on aspect or all these other things, like there are plenty of people that can do it better than me. And it's getting our ego out of the way, leaning into training and development, and making sure that we can be that true CEO that is working on the bigger problems, creating the solutions for those bigger problems, and letting their people run with the business.
Yeah, you really can't scale when you're the bottleneck, can you?
That is the number one issue. They become the bottleneck and they don't
Yeah.
realize it until someone from
Yeah.
the outside goes, hey, this is a bottleneck issue.
All right. So, Josh is a bridge builder, podcaster, coach, consultant, EOS implementer. That's Entrepreneur's operating system. Do you do some of that?
Entrepreneurial operating system. Yeah, that's part of my
Yeah.
world. So what I
Okay.
found, you asked about their common problems. When I started leadership coaching, I started finding a common problem beyond leadership. There's always two major issues that all of us leaders face. One is human development, which is what I'll put under leadership. And then the
Hmm.
other is systems and processes to help them scale and grow. So
Yeah.
every time I started running into this, I had read Traction back in 2018, 2019 by Gino Wickman, which is the foundational tool that started EOS.
Hmm.
We started implementing in 2019, 2020. Um, so as I started uncovering this, I leaned back to that and started doing some more research. I'm like, I'm just going to go get certified in that so that when this problem comes up instead of the leadership one, I'm going to have another tool in my tool belt. And it's been a home run because
Yeah.
being able to help entrepreneurs throughout all fields implement these systems help them get living their best life inside and outside their business. And then the other fun thing that's come from it, Jim, is I came from the financial world. We did things one way. It didn't matter what the company was. There's very few paths. Like we just did things this way. Learning the electrical field, learning the roofing and exteriors field, learning physical therapy, learning all these different fields that I'm now blessed to work with. There's some great lessons to cross over into different fields
Yeah.
and back and forth, and learning how they did marketing, learning how they did sales, learning how they did operations, and teaching different clients in different fields some different ways of going about things.
Yeah. I do some work with a manufacturer and with a service provider and some other folks. And when I sit down with them, right away I'm like, okay, so just so you know, 85% of business is all the same. It's that 15% that's in your niche that when you have to get like really spectacularly brilliant in your own space, it's only 15% of the business. And it's shocking to me how true that has, what a truism that's become.
Well, it's so like we could say the same thing about sales. Like you tell me your product and what problem it solves, and you give me enough information on that product, I can go sell that.
Yeah,
Doesn't matter what industry.
right.
So
Yeah,
it's very you're spot on. Like there's nuances, but they're not the majority. They're the minority.
for sure. All right, so we're going to land this plane. Josh, I want you to tell people, number one, how to get in contact with you.
Easiest way, I'm at Josh Kosnick on all social media, or joshkosnick.com. It's been fun to learn that I don't know any other Josh Kosnicks on the planet. So my SEO is really good, and hopefully it'll continue that way. I didn't name my son Josh, so we should continue that way with that. But I would love to hear from you what the biggest takeaway was today, or if you guys need any help in your organizations, whether it be leadership, systems, processes, or if you want to take a trip up to Madison. I have this 80-acre retreat where we host leadership immersion experiences, and we got the world's best cold plunge, and a lot of other fun things. Oh, Jim, you'd laugh at seeing some
Through
people's
the
cold plunge
ice, right?
experiences. Well, so what's great about it is it doesn't freeze. So I have this
Oh,
natural spring on my property, and when this was a functioning farm, 100 years ago, the farmers would keep the milk cold in that spot. So it just bubbles up from the ground. So the water temp stays around 41 degrees year round.
oh, wow. That's terrible.
Terribly awesome. But
Terribly awesome.
seeing people go through it for the first time, if they've never had cold water experience, is a hysterical event.
Well, my wife was from Duluth, Minnesota, and I originated in the northeast corner of South Dakota, so we know a thing or two about cold. But it's JoshKosnick.com. That's JoshKosnick.com. Sir, you have lived a big life already. Who is one of the champions that you look at and they affected your life in such a significant way that you just want to say thank you to them right now?
I already talked about my father-in-law, so I'll give you a different one. My father-in-law, and I gave him a great shout out in my book as well because his life meant that much to me. But I'll give you a different one. I had a coach for 10 to 15, somewhere in between 10 and 15 years. His name was John Wright Sr., and he was a managing partner as well. He was my dad's mentor. So when I was growing up in the business, I didn't want to listen to my dad, so I found his mentor to listen to. Um, and he had such a profound impact on me from how he lived and his example, and also how he guided me through some contentious conversations with my father and all that. But I'll just give people perspective. There were 75 managing partners at the company I was at. I was one of
Hmm.
them. I was the youngest one at the time. John Wright Sr. was responsible either through his direct tutelage or the people that came from underneath his direct tutelage for a third of them. That's how great of a leader he was.
Well, John Wright Sr., thank you for your influence on our guest today. And thank you, Josh Kosnick, for joining us on the Grampian.
Hey, it's been a pleasure, Jim. It's been a pleasure
All
to get to
right.
know you, and this podcast is an awesome tool. So don't just jump over to mine. You keep listening to Grampian.
Right on. And hey, Grampian Nation, you keep having those Grampian sized dreams. And until next time, this is Jim, and I am out. When you get an opportunity, subscribe or follow wherever you get your podcast.